Genseric refused to leave Africa. In the summer of 430 Bonifacius' weak army lost a battle. After this victory the troops of the Vandal king spread themselves in the 7 fertile African provinces from Tangier to Tripoli called the Granary of Rome. They did not tolerate any resistance. The death of one of their own was avenged by the destruction of the city before which he had lost his life. Being particularly ferocious and cruel, the Moors and the Donatists avenged themselves for their oppression and persecutions. After his defeat Bonifacius withdrew to the town of Hippo, which was immediately besieged by the Vandals. His old friend Augustin, bishop of the city, was ill. Now considered the first great Christian philosopher, one of the most esteemed saint of the Catholic Church, he was 76. His life was filled with reflection and had not been free from error. Augustine was born in Tagaste in Africa. Her mother Monique had been a fervent Christian and Patricius, her father, remained faithful to the traditional pagan religion. Parents often talked about their child's education and Patricius did everything to ensure that his son was well trained. Augustine writes in his Confessions that he led a life in his youth which often put his very pious mother to despair. Married early, after becoming professor of rhetoric, he adhered to the Manichaean sect. He lives in Rome and Milan. But after his conversion to 32 years, his manners were always pure and austere. He devoted his life to the struggle against the heresies of all denominations, Manichaeans, Pelagians, Donatists and others. Count Bonifacius visits his sick friend. Lying in bed, the bishop dictates to his secretary. His friend Pisidius, bishop of Calama, sits at his side. Augustine looks sadly at the count. My son, Africa is in flames. These heretics and unbelievers make unbelievable atrocities. Only true faith can save mankind. I would like to advise you. Augustine's voice becomes weak. A valet gives him a drink. Boniface curls up waiting for advice. Impossible to refuse a holy man. I'd like to advise you to talk with your wife. Surprised, the count trembles. The bishop looks closely into his eyes. Give your wife permission to spend the rest of your life in the service of God. She can leave for Spain to live with her rich parents. The Vandals are no longer there. Why continue carnal pleasures? If you do, God will listen to your prayers and forgive your sins. Then you can save Africa from the Vandals. Bonifacius is recovering. No, I cannot become a monk. I must command my army and fight against the enemies of the empire. Save Africa, Spain, all the empire. Augustine says slowly but in a loud voice, you will continue to command your army. But as a true warrior of Christ, you could become the great founder of the Christian state backed by the militant church. On seeing the face of his friend distraught, the bishop no longer insists. You did not think much about these questions, although we had already discussed them. In order to assimilate these ideas one must read and reflect on each proposition. I give you my works. More than 200 books and treatises on various theological subjects, a complete explanation of the Gospels and Psalms and other works. Bonifacius exclaims involuntarily, but I will not have time to read it all. Augustine makes a grimace as if he had a sharp pain. The count bites his tongue and looks at his friend with compassion. The bishop gives him a book. Read it and keep it as a memory of me. It is an abridged version of the City of God that I have adapted for you. I have little time left to live. I ask you to save all my books with my friend Pisidius and transmit him to the Pope. Come talk to me sometimes. Perhaps you will find the voice of God again. Augustine died on the 28th of August from 430 to the third month of the siege. The surroundings were ravaged by the Vandals, but their army was forced by famine to lift the siege. The Emperor Theodosius sent General Asper, at the request of Placidia, with an army and a fleet. But the forces united under the orders of Boniface were again defeated by Genseric. Africa was lost. The remains of the troops embarked with precipitation, and the inhabitants of Hippo obtained permission to occupy in the ships the places of the soldiers killed or taken prisoner by the Vandals. In these moments of despair and panic, Bonifacius did not forget his deceased friend. All the books and works of Augustine were saved.